Howdy! Today we will be conducting a psychological diagnosis for the character Max Rockatansky from the films Mad Max, The Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, and most recently, Mad Max Fury Road. In a past life, Max was a cop, patrolling the highways of Australia until one fateful day when his wife and daughter were murdered by a biker gang led by a man known as the Toe Cutter. After these events, Australia seems to have undergone a complete societal collapse, leaving Max to roam the wasteland, trying to survive. In fact, it has been theorized that the post-apocalyptic imagery in these films is actually Max's way of coping with the loss of his loved ones. They were his world, and when they died, his world collapsed. Max Rockatansky seems to be suffering from a trauma-related disorder categorized in the DSM-5 as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. PTSD is caused in individuals by exposure to traumatic events, in this case the death of Max's wife and child. Symptoms include re-experience of the trauma in question through flashbacks, nightmares, or disturbing recollections, avoidance of places, people, or situations that remind the affected individual of the trauma in question, increased arousal, which can manifest in such ways as having difficulty sleeping or concentrating, as well as jumpiness and emotional instability, and general negative cognition and mood. In the opening scenes of Fury Road, Max states, "I am the one who runs from both the living and the dead." This quote is a reference to the ghosts that haunt him throughout the film, frequently manifesting as disturbing nightmares and visions of his family, disturbing his sleep and telling him to stop running. Unlike most of the other characters who form into social groups searching for a home, Max spends his existence constantly on the run, moving from one place to another. His entire world, filled with violent bandits and fast vehicles, reminds him of the biker gang that killed his family, and for the sake of what remains of his sanity, he cannot stay in one place for too long. Besides one scene in which Max is awoken from his sleep by a nightmare, it is unclear what effect his PTSD may have on his level of arousal. Though he is frequently capable of daring feats and split-second decisions, this is likely to be the result of the harsh necessities of his life as a wandering scavenger in a hellish world, rather than a direct symptom of his PTSD. In fact, the visions Max experiences often give him pause, allowing his enemies to take advantage of the opportunity, rather than arousing Max even further. One likely PTSD treatment that would be able to help Max is exposure therapy. Exposure therapy aims to make the patient confront the source of the trauma in order to help cope with it. The hope here would be to cause Max to stop constantly running from everything in the world so that he may settle down and become a productive member of society. Whilst some may find such treatment rather cruel or inhumane, it may be quite appropriate in Max Rockatansky's case, as he is constantly surrounded by people and things that remind him of his trauma. In fact, Max himself makes the decision to confront his fears in Fury Road when he suggests that his ragtag party stops fleeing from the villains as they had been up to that point, and instead turn around and face them head-on. Even in the ensuing battle, Max is confronted with his visions, but after an intense struggle is able to overcome his fears, at least for a little while. Altogether, it is difficult to tell whether Fury Road portrays PTSD accurately. We are used to seeing this behavior in an otherwise normal environment, rather than the violent, hellish one portrayed in the film. I believe that this is done to portray Max as a warrior, a strong character who, because he is able to bear such heavy burdens, becomes sympathetic to the audience despite his mental condition. This is mirrored in the fact that PTSD is commonly associated with the military and with soldiers who must experience situations very similar to those experienced by Max in the film. Consequently, members of the military are typically held in very high esteem. Though this may be appropriate in this case, sympathetic portrayals of psychological disorders in film can often have undesirable consequences. The audience may end up celebrating individuals with these disorders whilst simultaneously overlooking the necessity for treatment, which unfortunately happens with many of the military all too often. So, this has been my presentation on the movie Mad Max Fury Road, and my psychological diagnosis of the main character, Max Rockatansky. I hope you enjoyed it.